Hello, friends. Um, it's about 15 after 7 on Thursday evening, April 24th. I was unable to go Facebook Live for whatever reason tonight because I'm blocked from going Facebook Live. I'm not exactly sure what that's all about, but some of the items of satire that I've shared um, have apparently violated Facebook's community standards. They don't allow certain satire forms. If it doesn't agree with their politics, I guess they keep that from being broadcast, or they preemptively block somebody that's done that from going Facebook Live. I'm not in Facebook jail. I can post and comment and like and so forth, but I just can't go live with a Facebook Live video. So I'm going to record this first episode, see if I can post it later on to Facebook, and we'll see what happens. All right. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to be giving an introduction and reading the first chapter of this book, The Adventures of Jonathan Gullible, a Free Market Odyssey by Ken Schooland. I do have permission from the author to do this. I talked to him last night and received his enthusiastic blessing to do so. And before I get started, I just want to give a couple of acknowledgments that he acknowledged when I spoke with him last night. He communicated to me that the ideas that are expressed in his book come from authors that some of you probably have read. I wish I had read more of them, but I plan to. And those names include Bastiat, Rothbard, Rand, Friedman, Hayek, and Dostoevsky, and others. This is so that kind of gives you a background of what you're about to hear for those of you who are familiar with those names, and for those of you that are not, then I hope you enjoy this. The reason I chose this book is because there's a video that went on Facebook, or a YouTube video called The Philosophy of Liberty. And if you've ever seen that video, then those ideas are taken straight out of this book. And so as I read through it over the next 40 days or so, then hopefully you'll get to understand some of that stuff, and it'll maybe change your life the same way it did mine. It's definitely influenced my political, economic, and life philosophy. So here we go. About this book. This book is fun. It challenges. You know what? I'm going to have to put my glasses on, folks. I thought maybe I could do this without my reading glasses. And they present a bit of an issue. If I get about right here, it creates an incredible glare right there in your eyes. So I'm going to just try to pull them down. At the risk of looking snooty, I'm going to pull them down here. That way I can just look at you this way and then stare through my glasses at the book as I'm reading it, because it does help me out quite a bit. I've got 50-year-old eyes, so bear with me. This book is fun. It challenges readers to think about why some countries are rich while others are poor. It explores alternative thinking about important economic, practical, and philosophical matters. The variety of ideas will challenge readers to ponder, question, and engage in meaningful discussions. Underlying all this is the respect for and tolerance of the individual. Since 1980, Ken has been writing economic commentaries. For radio, straight commentary from an academic economist was dry and uninteresting. He thought he would spice up these radio spots with fantasy dialogues. Friends were willing to perform with him, and so Jonathan Gullible was born. Immediately, interest among listeners soared. The ideas were provocative and outlandish, yet they drove home hardcore free market ideas in a humorous way. Later, he enlisted a dozen friends as actors to produce the episodes as a dramatic series. Again, it was a hit. Since then, The Adventures of Jonathan Gullible, a free market odyssey, has been used for radio broadcasts, discussion groups, essay contests, skits, and theatrical productions around the globe. Each chapter, except the first, starts with a short parable about Jonathan Gullible and his encounters with the strange laws of an island and its inhabitants. This story highlights the absurdities of the laws and controls imposed on people's lives and the economic drawbacks of these laws. The laws are recognizable as common to countries throughout the world. As the story unfolds, the part we play in political decision-making and personal responsibility is introduced for discussion. There are many subtle nuances. Sometimes people miss the meaning of a story, so each parable is followed by commentaries and relevant background information. These commentaries are meant to provide only the gist of each issue. Books and websites are recommended for further research. They will be particularly useful for projects and debates. Questions following each chapter are guidelines for group discussions about self-responsibility and life skills that will arouse an interest in the areas of sociology, macroeconomics, philosophy, political science, and ethics. Teachers are warned that the book contains chapters that are critical of contemporary educational systems. We feel that students should not be shielded from hard questions about schooling. Rather, we should trust students to take a hard look at the circumstances that are most familiar to them. Indeed, these chapters are typically the most popular with students. I have a feeling, and I'm getting out of the book for just a second. I have a feeling that those chapters are going to be my favorite ones as well, because I definitely believe in teaching critical thinking. Available in more than 30 languages, this widely acclaimed book has received numerous awards. These include the Leonard E. Read Book Award for the Foundation of Economic Education in 2002, Thomas Levy Award for Excellence in Private Enterprise Education from the Freedoms Foundation at Valley Forge, Pennsylvania, and twice awarded the George Washington Honor Medals for Economics Education and Public Communications from the Freedoms Foundation at Valley Forge. All right, so just an introduction to the author then. Ken Schooland is presently an associate professor of economics and political science at Hawaii Pacific University. Prior to this, he was the director of the Master of Science in Japanese Business Studies program at Chaminade University in Honolulu, and head of the Business and Economics program at Hawaii Loa College. Following his graduate studies at Georgetown University, he served as an international economist in the U.S. International Trade Commission, the U.S. Department of Commerce, and on assignment at the White House, Office of the Special Representation for Trade Negotiations. Ken left government for the field of education, teaching business and economics at Sheldon Jackson College in Alaska. He also taught at Hakodate University in Japan and wrote Shogun's Ghost, The Dark Side of Japanese Education, which has been published in English and Japanese. Ken is a member of the board of directors for the International Society for Individual Liberty and is a Sam Walton Fellow for Students in Free Enterprise. He has traveled extensively observing cultures, traditions, and economies in many countries around the world. Stephen Brown, director of Liberty English Camp in Lithuania, once summed up Professor Schooland's character by saying, "As soon as Ken sits down in any given place long enough, a child is going to come up to him from somewhere and want to sit on his lap. Or a teenager is going to come by and want him for a game of basketball. Such is the author of The Adventures of Jonathan Gullible, a free market odyssey." All right, before we jump right into chapter 1 here, there is a short page, Jonathan's Guiding Principles. My philosophy is based on the principle of self-ownership. You own your life. No other person or group of persons owns your life, nor do you own the lives of others. The harvest of your life is your property. It is the fruit of your labor, the product of your time, energy, and talents. Two people who exchange possessions voluntarily are both better off, or they wouldn't do it. Only they may rightfully make that decision for themselves. You have the right to protect your life, freedom, and justly acquired possessions. You may rightfully ask others to help protect you. You do not have a right to initiate force against the life, freedom, or possessions of others. Thus, you have no right to designate some person to initiate force against others on your behalf. You have a right to seek leaders for yourself, but have no right to impose rulers on others. No matter how officials are selected, they have no rights or claims that are higher than those of any other person. You cannot give them any rights that you do not have yourself. Regardless of the imaginative titles, officials have no right to murder, enslave, or to steal. Since you own your life, you are responsible for your life. You choose your own goals based on your own values. Success and failure are both the necessary incentives to learn and grow. Your actions on behalf of others, or their actions on behalf of you, are virtuous only when they come from voluntary, mutual consent. For virtue can only exist where there is free choice. This is the basis of a truly free society. It is not only the most practical and caring foundation for human action, but it is the most ethical. Jonathan Gullible. Now I'm going to relax a little bit, and we're going to enjoy chapter 1 of Jonathan's story. Prologue. In accordance with Mr. Gullible's wishes, I take up the task of recounting a bizarre tale that he related to me in his last years. I have made every effort to remain true to his account despite some literary license. This is a first-hand testimony about the people and incidents of his journey. Chapter 1, The Great Storm. A Great Storm. In a sunny seaside town, long before it filled up with movie stars driving convertibles, there lived a young man named Jonathan Gullible. He was unremarkable to anyone except his parents, who thought him clever, sincere, and remarkably athletic, from the top of his head to the bottom of his oversized feet. They worked hard in a small chandler's shop on the main street of a town that was home to a busy fishing fleet. It had a fair number of hard-working folk, some good, some bad, and mostly just plain average. When he wasn't doing chores or errands for his family's store, Jonathan would steer his rough sailboat out the narrow channel of a small boat harbor in search of adventure. Like many youth spending their early years in the same place, Jonathan found life a little dull and thought the people around him unimaginative. He longed to see a strange ship or sea serpent on his brief voyage beyond the channel. Maybe he would run into a pirate ship and be forced to sail the seven seas as part of the crew. Or perhaps a whaler on the prowl for oily prey would let him on board for a hunt. Most sailing trips, however, ended when his stomach pinched with hunger, or his throat parched with thirst, and the thoughts of supper was the only thing on his mind. On one of those fine spring days, when the air was as crisp as a sun-dried sheet, the sea looked so good that Jonathan thought nothing of packing his lunch and fishing gear into his little boat for a cruise. As he tacked beyond the rocky point of the lighthouse, he felt as free-spirited as the great condor that he watched soaring above the coastal mountains with his back to the breeze. Jonathan didn't notice the dark storm clouds gathering on the horizon. Jonathan had only recently begun to sail beyond the mouth of the harbor, but he was getting more confident. When the wind began to pick up strength, he didn't worry until it was too late. Soon he was struggling frantically at the rigging as the storm broke over him with violent force. His boat tossed dizzily among the waves like a cork in a tub. Every effort he made to control his vessel failed. Useless against the tremendous winds, at last he dropped to the bottom of the boat, clutching the sides and hoping that he would not capsize. Night and day blended together in a terrifying swirl. When the storm finally died down, his boat was a shambles, its mast broken, sails torn, and it tipped in a definite list to starboard. The sea calmed, but a thick fog lingered, shrouding his craft and cutting off any view. After drifting for days, his water ran out, and he could only moisten his lips on the condensation that dripped off the shreds of canvas. Then the fog lifted, and Jonathan spotted the faint outline of an island. As he drifted closer, he made out unfamiliar headlands jutting from the sandy beaches and steep hillsides covered by lush vegetation. The waves carried him onto a shallow reef. Abandoning his craft, Jonathan swam eagerly to shore. He quickly found and devoured the pink guavas, ripe bananas, and other delicious fruit that flourished beyond the narrow sandy beach in the humid jungle climate. As soon as he regained some strength, Jonathan felt desolate but relieved to be alive. He actually grew excited at his unintended plunge into adventure. He immediately set off along the white sandy beach to discover more about this strange new land. And that is chapter 1. A little background. The character of Jonathan was first envisioned after browsing through Gulliver's Travels and The Little Prince. Also by coincidence or subconsciously, JG are also the initials of John Galt, a character in Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged, a book that also is famous for challenging many of society's assumptions about ethics, force, economics, and the proper role of government. The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry is a mystical tale about a prince living alone on a planet, showing independence of mind, imagination, and sensitivity. The film, Saint X, deals with Antoine de Saint-Exupéry's life as a rather adventurous pilot during World War II. Jonathan Swift's Gulliver's Travels is often thought of as stories for children. But this story, like this book, was written to vex the world and to show the unpleasant aspects of the politics of the day. You own your life. To deny this is to imply that another person has a higher claim on your life than you do. And that is an extract from Jonathan Gullible's Guiding Principles. Well, that's all I've got for you in this video. It was a little bit longer than the rest of them will be, as I did a little more than read a chapter. And so what I plan to do each time I'm able to go live or have to post a video is to go through one chapter of the book and then open up a dialogue on Facebook for discussion, if anybody cares to do so. I'd like to, again, thank Dr. Schoolin for allowing me to read his book live online, and I hope everybody enjoys it. Thanks.